Hello, and welcome to a starter guide to homeownership, Diploma to down payment. This is brought to you by the Ball State Young Alumni Council and the Ball State Career Center. I'm your host, Nathan Wilson. I'm a 2015 Ball State graduate from the Department of Media. I currently serve as the chair of the Young Alumni Council. On the discussion with me today, we have Molly Lawless Vance and Christian Abner. Molly is an Indianapolis native and West Carmel resident. She grew up in a real estate family, has spent 10 years on the Lawless team, and now serves as team leader. She loves helping buyers and sellers at every stage of life. And Christian received his real estate license in 2015. He graduated from Ball State in 2017 with a degree in business. He works for eXp Realty, whose team of 11 agents cover all of central Indiana. He lives on the south side of Indy. Molly and Christian, thank you very much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we've got a few questions here for you. So the very first question, what factors should young professionals prioritize when deciding whether to rent or buy in today's market? Molly, would you like to go first?
Sure, absolutely. So there are a lot of factors in deciding to either, move forward with renting or purchasing your first home. Of course, a positive of purchasing a home is you're building equity and you're not paying a landlord or an apartment complex company anymore. Another con or another pro, would be long-term stability. So, your rental rate's not going to fluctuate. It's not going to go up every single year. There's also appreciation potential as well. In the Indianapolis market, we historically have seen about a 4 to 6% increase in value for homes. A con of purchasing a home, if you don't have the down payment to purchase a home, enough money saved. And then maintenance is always going to be on you once you own a home. So you would be paying for fixing the HVAC or, replacing a water heater. Market risk too, values can, dip too as well. And then just there are ongoing costs of purchasing a home. Property taxes, unfortunately, do increase almost every year when you own a home, and also homeowners insurance. But just kind of depends on those factors.
Perfect. Christian?
Yeah, a lot of that covers a majority of kind of the pros and cons of deciding. I think a lot of the big one for younger people is the maintenance aspect of it. Obviously, when you rent, if something goes wrong, all you have to do is call your maintenance person and they show up and fix everything. So I think the big thing that I've kind of seen with maybe some of the younger buyers is like townhomes and condos. Some things where some of the exterior maintenance and stuff like that is kind of covered. Don't have to mow a lawn, stuff like that. But I think a lot of it is kind of just location based on where you're at, where your friends are at, where your job is at. But I think she covered it. The big things is just if you're ready for it, if you've got the funds, and having those kind of things that you don't really think about, like the maintenance aspects of it.
Yeah, perfect. So, Christian, while I've got you here, you kind of spoke about the differences between condos, townhomes, single family homes. So what are the pros and cons of kind of picking, between those different kinds of ways of living for first-time home buyers early on in their careers?
Yeah. Again, it's kind of the same aspect. When you own like a single family home, you have to maintain the exterior of your home. So you're paying attention to your siding or your brick, your roof, your yard, all of that kind of things. If you got a green thumb, you're doing the landscaping, everything like that, versus your condos and your townhomes. They're going to be a lot less maintenance driven. You probably don't have to mow. They probably got a crew for that. You usually don't have to maintain a lot of the exterior of your building. That's usually covered in those HOA fees. I think the big difference is you're usually going to, like, there's a lot of HOAs in different neighborhoods, but usually your condos and your townhomes are going to have a little bit higher of a monthly HOA fee to cover some of those maintenance items. So it's more of a, do you want to pay for someone else to do it versus kind of do it yourself and plan for stuff like that.
Molly, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, one thing to add with townhomes and condos, usually you share walls, so that's kind of a disadvantage if you are going from the apartment life to a townhome or condo. Is that really something that you would do all over again, because you never know who you could end up with next door? And then historically, we don't see townhomes appreciate as much as single family homes. They just historically don't appreciate as well as a single family home. So that's just kind of another thing to add to townhomes. But again, if you're looking for a lifestyle of where you travel a lot for work, or you just travel in general a lot, a townhome or a condo might be for you. Because, like you said, that there's a lot less maintenance and you can leave and not mow your grass because your HOA covers that. So.
Perfect. Is there, you hear kind of this discussion all the time that there's, you need to buy right now instead of, 10 months from now, or you should have bought 3 years ago. Is there such thing as a right time to buy a first home, or is it more about personal readiness for the home buyer?
I would say, hindsight is 2020. Of course, buying a home, 5 years ago would have been great because you would have locked in that 2.9%. But I think it's more about being ready financially, personally, where you're at in life. If your career, if you're in a career and you feel like you're going to stay in one location for a while, and I think buying a home would be a great idea for you. I just think it's more about the financial stability, and if you're going to stay in one location, then buying is probably going to be a good idea. I always say, like, a rule of thumb, that clients typically stay in their first home for 3 to 7 years.
Perfect. Christian, do you have any notes for that one, or kind of following?
Yeah. Well, she kind of mentioned it in the last one. Homes are going to appreciate most years, and Indiana averages 4 to 6%. So it's always that timing the market thing. They always debate wait for the lower interest rates versus the equity that you've already built or had. I think our best example, like she mentioned, was kind of the 2020. Interest rates dropped to like 3% or lower. So you might have saved a couple $100 a month. But if you would have bought in 2018 or 2019 at the higher interest rate, you probably would have had $40,000, $50,000 worth of equity built into your house and didn't have to do a single thing, because they appreciated a lot during that crazy time. So you would basically be trading equity that you could have built versus a lower interest rate. So I think there is no really good way to time the market. So I would just second what she said. You just, if you're ready for it and you've looked at your budget and you've figured out what you can afford, then if it's the right time, then do it then.
Okay, perfect. What would you say, how much house can a younger buyer afford? What are the common mistakes that somebody might make when they're buying their first home and kind of making that leap for the first time?
I always like to say, don't outprice yourself. More often than not, you can afford more on paper than you actually can for your budget. So don't go buy a house on a steak budget or a steak price point and eating a ramen budget. So, because I'm pretty sure the limits for like lenders is like 49% of your income is what they will lend you for a monthly payment. Most financial people will tell you to keep that at like maybe 30 to 33%. It's going to be a huge difference in your monthly income and your monthly budget. I think I ran some simple numbers at like a $260,000 house. You do 5% down, which would be kind of a typical conventional loan. You'd be looking at about $2,000 a month. which is probably pretty normal in certain areas of kind of Indianapolis for maybe like a starter home. It's run a budget, make sure that it's going to fit into your budget, and kind of stick to it, because it's like your life. Like I said, lifestyle is, you don't want to just be, ooh, I've got a nice home, but now I can't leave and I'm only eating ramen every night. So you don't want to price yourself into that.
Yeah, Molly, you have any notes for that one?
Yeah, something I always like to tell clients, I like to say, you don't want to be house poor when you purchase, your first home. You want to be able to, of course, it's going to take a while to probably furnish your first home. You're not going to probably buy all your furniture right when you move in, but it's going to take time. But I also say, you need to make sure that you're preparing for any emergencies that come up for you purchase the home. You have to make sure that you have enough money for a down payment plus closing costs. And then, of course, you have to have room in your budget for just living, for groceries, for if you have kids, daycare, anything school, extracurricular for your kids. You want to make sure that you budget for that as well. But just like he said, you don't, like, one of the top mistakes probably for people is just buying at the tip top of your budget. And then, people don't always account for HOA fees going up or property taxes going up. And then, of course, that makes your monthly payment more expensive. So people can make that mistake of not being prepared for those costs to go up. And then, people might just be draining all their savings just to make, your monthly mortgage payment.
Perfect. How would you say student debt and credit scores can affect the home ownership opportunities that somebody could have? And how can, young home buyers best financially prepare for purchasing a home?
So I always say start out by talking to a mortgage lender. That's where I say, whenever I have a first-time home buyer come to me, I will initially meet with them, sit down with them, talk to them about the buying process. And then I say, you really need to talk to a mortgage lender to see where you lie financially. Of course, they're going to look at your monthly debt divided by your gross monthly income. And they're going to see how much you pay. Obviously, if you have student loans, they're going to look at your credit score to see if you have a good credit score. If you haven't really built your credit, then that's going to hurt you with buying a home, because you have to have a decent credit score and your credit needs to be built up. And you can work with mortgage lenders and credit companies to repair your credit too. It can take a while, but it's definitely something that can be done. But you, of course, want to be financially savvy when you're going to purchase a home. You don't want to go out and buy a new car. Or if you're under contract already with a house, you can't go buy a new car either, because then you could lose, the ability to buy a house. So you just have to be smart.
Yeah,
Christian, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, she's perfectly correct right there. They will say it's a way easier to buy a car than it is a house. So there's a lot. I've had a lot of clients over the years that have purposefully waited, like they've gone and found the car they want, but will wait till like the day after they close on the house to go buy it, so that it does not affect them actually buying the house. But the rule of thumb is credit up, interest rates down, which is ideal for that monthly payment. I think I saw maybe on a NAR thing that if you've got pretty much perfect credit compared to kind of the bottom of the barrel credit that you can get approved, there could be a 1.5% interest rate difference. And that is a huge factor in that monthly payment.
Gotcha. So what kind of grants, loans, incentives can young home buyers start looking at, whether it be the first home or, second maybe, because, they might be out of that, grew out of their first home. And how can they find that trustworthy guidance that they need to make sure that they're making good decisions when looking at those grants, loans, different kinds of incentives?
Yeah. So like she mentioned, start with talking to a lender. And even maybe multiple lenders, because the different companies are going to have different products or different scenarios that they use. But talking to them and asking them about the different loan types or products, grants, and how that's going to affect you, because there's a million different grants or first-time home buyer programs, and some of them just drop how much you need as a down payment. Some of them can drop it even to zero. But the big key factors in those are, a lot of the times, are, do you have to repay those? Do you not have to repay those? If you do, like, do you have to live there for so long before you have to, like, before they fall off? Do you get 0% down? You don't have to have any money, but do they jack your interest rate up? So there's a lot of factors in every one of the different programs, and all of them are different. And so, like she said, call or talk to a lender. If you don't have a lender, find an agent that you would want to work with, and we're all going to have preferred lenders that you can reach out to, so that you can talk to them and figure out what would work best for you.
Perfect. Molly?
Yeah, exactly what Christian said. I work with a couple of mortgage lenders that are, my trusted mortgage lenders, who can offer you, the best closing costs, the best mortgage interest rate. But I always say, it's like shopping for homeowners insurance. You want to talk to multiple people because you want to shop around to see if one can offer you better closing costs than the other. And then on another note, while we are actually negotiating the purchase of a home, as a first-time home buyer, we might be able to actually help you negotiate for the seller to pay for closing costs, which would help for you to be able to bring less money to the closing table when purchasing a home. And that would include inspection costs, the appraisal costs. But like Christian and I both said, the best thing you can do is talk to a mortgage lender initially to see where you qualify for, what kind of loan you qualify for.
Perfect. So let's move on to a kind of a different way of thinking about buying a home. How does homeownership fit into like the broader wealth building strategy that somebody could have, as opposed to investing in stocks or retirement accounts or other things like that of building your portfolio?
I'll go first. So of course, like Christian and I both mentioned, building equity in a home, that's one way to, when purchasing a home, you have kind of a forced savings through building equity of owning the home. And then you kind of control, it's one of the largest assets that you're going to do in your lifetime is purchasing a home. And like we said, homes are going to hopefully continue to appreciate in Indianapolis and Indiana in general, 4 to 6% a year. But, smart wealth building would be, in a perfect world, would be buying a home that, you can comfortably afford, and then also continue to, contribute to your retirement plan. And hopefully the company that you work for has a match. I would always, of course, talk to a CPA or a financial planner with those kinds of things, because that's not exactly what we do. But of course, too, saving for emergency funds too when owning a home is important as well.
Yeah, Christian, how do you feel?
Yeah, it's again perfectly correct right there. Again, I just went to try to find some numbers, and because there is like a huge, I guess, discrepancy in how much people actually save for investments and retirement and stuff. I think they said the average renter only has about $10,000 in that account as a nationwide number, versus the people who own homes have hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity that they're building up and adding to every year. So I think the number was like 43 times more amount of like net worth is by owning a home, because you don't really think about it as kind of building that money up when you're making your payment every month. You're looking at it as a I pay, I stay kind of a thing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of like mindless investing, which is perfect for the simplicity of it. But like she says, eggs in one basket is probably not the greatest way to do it. So I would talk to CPA financial advisors and make sure you're kind of diversifying that portfolio.
Gotcha. So Christian, what are some kind of hidden or underestimated costs that somebody might run into when purchasing a home that they might not think about when they first buy that home?
I'm going to start with just the maintenance of things, or the lack of having things in general. Because I think Molly mentioned it earlier. When you buy a house, you do not have to furnish the entire thing the minute you move in. If you ask anybody, the first move that you have, you're going to be like, I don't have enough stuff to fill this house. By the time you move out of that house, you're going to be looking around and saying, where did I get all of this stuff? But the unexpected cost is going to be more of those maintenance things. Like if you don't own a lawnmower and you buy a house, you have to mow the lawn if you're not paying someone to mow the lawn. If you accidentally hit a rock and it throws it through your siding, you're going to want to get those repaired. Water heaters, furnaces, like right now it's cold in Indiana, guys. This is that time of year that furnaces struggle because they're running 24/7 all day long and they can go out. And most of us are not HVAC technicians, so you're going to have to call someone. And again, it's cold. It's probably going to be at that emergency, I need you to come now or come yesterday kind of rate. You got to get it fixed to get your heat back. So a lot of those, and I think like having that like rainy day fund or just like a maintenance fund is going to be one of the best things that you can kind of have. Save a couple $1,000s that you can just set aside so that if anything goes wrong, you're not just scrambling and trying to figure out how you're going to take care of it. Because I mean, I built my house, I built a little starter house. Within the first year, my water heater went out, one of the elements went out, and I had to get that fixed. When I built it, even though I've done this for a living for over 10 years, I didn't think about the fact that I needed blinds and it wasn't included. So I went like the first month without blinds. I had like taped a sheet over my master bedroom window because I had to have someone come out and measure and then get them shipped and installed. So there's always going to be like a little something that you didn't really think about or comes up and you weren't expecting it. So having that little bit of a rainy day fund is going to be enormous help.
Yeah, there's the first home that we put an offer in on. The inspector came, and in the inspection, he was like, "Hey, this house doesn't have any gutters." And we were like, "Oh my gosh, how did we not even think about this house not having gutters?" And
Oh no!
luckily, that all like fell through and everything, and you get your earnest money back and stuff like that. But there are those little things that you don't think about when you're purchasing that home that you're just like, "Oh, okay, all right." Molly, what are some unexpected things that you might have ran into personally or see other people run into?
And that's why you get a home inspection. But just what Christian said, I would say the unexpected repairs, there is something that we can try to negotiate for a first-time home buyer for the first year that they live in the home. We can try to negotiate a home warranty, which would cover, the day from you close to a year out. And you would pay like a little fee every time. Let's say, something went out in your furnace, the home company would come out, you would pay like $100 deductible, and then the parts would actually be paid for through that home warranty. So that is something that we could try to negotiate for you to try to help you with, that first year that you live in a house, of those unexpected things that break. Because, those are just unfortunately things that we cannot predict. You can get your home inspected before you move in, but I can't predict that your furnaces or your water heater is going to go out, even if it's brand new, because things are just not made as well as they used to be made. But I would say just, the unexpected, if you live in a townhome, or a condo, there are things called special assessments where, in townhomes, you all share the same roof. And let's say that the roof is on the older side when you purchase the townhome, there could be a special assessment, and every townhome owner would be liable for putting a lump sum of money towards the HOA to get a new roof put in. So that's just kind of something that could be, that's just part of owning a townhome that could happen to you. So.
Yeah. So we'll switch it up again. All those are great. What is, when you watch the different home buying shows where people are traveling and they're trying to pick a new place to live. Can't remember what the name of that show is, but one of the big things that they're always talking about is like their commute to work, or how close different things are to them, or how far away it is for like kids to walk to school and things like that. How much weight should be put onto those kind of things against how well you can afford the home or the long-term value of the home? Christian, you want to go first on that one?
Yeah. You do have to put weight into those things, because I always tell my clients, I would love to help you buy a house and then sell it again, but I don't want it to be a very quick turn time. I don't want you to buy something that you're going to hate in 6 months, just because it was what was there right now, kind of a deal. So your lifestyle obviously plays into a huge factor of the house that you're buying. If you're just graduating, you're going to fit into the younger category here. And I think the average expectancy of like how often people move it's gotten shorter, but I think it's at like 5 years or something like that. But for younger people, it's a whole lot harder, especially with kind of the way that job culture has really shifted. I think it's like they're only keeping a job for like a year to 2 years before they're moving again. Now, granted, a lot of that I believe is usually just maybe across town or a different spot. Jobs are kind of become a little bit more remote. But I think a lot of that has to factor into the houses that you're looking for. What is that max commute time that you're looking to make every morning and every night if you have to go into the office? If you're a runner, like you don't want to just be in a remote location that's just nothing but busy streets. You're going to want maybe some running trails or access to them pretty closely. So there's those factors I do think play into your decision a whole lot more than maybe just price point. Obviously, that's kind of a huge factor of it, because again, like we've mentioned, you don't want to price yourself out by moving to like a certain area, but you also don't want to be like, oh, this one's really cheap and really nice payment, but then you absolutely just hate it right afterwards. And you don't want to hate where you're at every single day.
Gotcha. Molly, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, a lot of what Christian said, we always say location, it really matters when purchasing a house. I truly think most of my clients stay in their house depending on, what changes in life. I mean, during COVID, we had a ton of clients come back to us in like just a couple of years because the house that they purchased no longer fit them because they're both working from home. So when, a couple, used to both office and now they're both working from home, all of a sudden, life can change. Of course, life always changes. So, we want to be able to make sure that if your life does change unexpectedly, that we can help you resell the house. If it's, a highway, I'm probably going to say, this probably isn't a good idea financially. You're going to hear the highway noise. No one is going to want to purchase this house because they're going to say the same thing that I'm saying. So I think location really matters, just where the house is located at for a lot of reasons. And then of course, putting your commute time into there as well. And, if it's walkable, usually if it's somewhere like, let's say Broad Ripple or, downtown Fishers, there's going to be a higher price point probably if your house is going to be within walking distance of a lot of fun stuff. So it just kind of depends on where you're at in life. But I always tell my clients that, every home is going to have its trade-off. It's hard to find the perfect home within your budget. So you kind of just have to keep that in mind that, one home might have this and then one home might have that, but it might not be like the perfect home, but it could be the right home for you. So.
Perfect. I want to remind everybody that's watching this, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask for Molly or Christian while we're doing this, before we wrap up, feel free to leave a comment, let us know what your questions are, and we'll do our best to go through those and have Molly and Christian answer those. Guys, I have one more question for you. We kind of just talked about it a little bit. So career changes, relocation, family plans, things like that. I feel like those are big things that we got to think about when we're buying that first home. What are kind of some other things that you might want to think about when you're purchasing that first home that might change, the outlook on, where you're going to buy that home at?
That one's a little tougher because we talked about a lot of those big factors. And most of the time, those big changes, if you're not expecting them, it's hard to plan for. If you've kind of got that 5-year plan built out and you're like, okay, in that next 5 years, I'd love to switch jobs and I would love to have a kid. And then we probably wouldn't recommend buying a little, maybe 2-bedroom house. You're just going to grow out of it really, really quick. So the planned changes make it a little easier. Buy maybe a 4-bedroom instead of a 2 or a 3-bedroom if you're planning on having a kid, or if you might have a friend or a roommate or a family member that's going to end up staying with you. So there's things like that if you share with your agent, we can try to help make sure you're kind of future-proofing it. If you just got unexpected changes, like a job change, and you buy a house up in Carmel and then all of a sudden you're working down in Greenwood, it's usually not a change that you probably first saw coming if you just bought a house. So it's a little bit tougher to plan for. So you just kind of have to plan for what you can plan and hope for the best after kind of that.
Awesome. So we've got a couple of questions from people that are watching. So Sarah wanted to know how old of a home is too old to buy in today's market? Is there any cutoff on age that could make the home a money pit or an unwise investment? So if we want to go ahead, Molly, do you want to answer that one since Christian just kind of knocked out the last question?
Yeah, I actually used to live in Broad Ripple. My house was a 1942 house, which some people might not consider that too old, but it was pretty old. But I work with a lot of clients that buy in downtown Indianapolis. I will say buying a very, very old home can be a financial burden in some cases. This is why it's super important to get a home inspected and pay for the inspection. It's very well worth it to do the whole inspection where they will look at everything. They'll open up the electrical panel. They'll get in the attic. They'll get in the crawl space if there's a crawl space. I highly recommend a sewer line scope because again, that can be a financial burden. There's not necessarily a cutoff, but I will say in Fountain Square and in downtown, we do see a lot of structural issues with homes. And when you run into structural issues, then I say run away from the house because if it can't get fixed,
it might fall on you. Yeah.
It might fall on you, really, but I've had some circumstances where inspection was just a nightmare. There was a lot of different structural issues which we couldn't see to our eye until we got through the inspection, and my clients walked away. But I just say never ever skip inspection, just because older homes can have structural problems, and then that's you can have a wet basement, and you don't want to live with a wet basement that leads to mold or different issues health-wise too. So
right. Christian, Chloe was wondering, could you please chat about buying at a higher interest rate and then refinancing later when the rates drop?
Yes. So that would probably tie right into our don't try to time the market kind of a thing. My recommendation always is buy where you can now and not expect to be able to get it lowered later. So, I mean, in just 2025 would probably be like a good example. I think we started at the beginning of 2025 at like 7.25, and by the end of it, we got into like the low sixes. When you're at that like 7.25, buy what you can afford at the 7.25 and what is comfortable for your budget. And then when it drops, and if you can refinance, perfect. Go ahead and do that. And just celebrate when your monthly payment is just lower, and take that extra money and do whatever you want to do with it. My brother-in-law basically just did that. My neighbor just did that. They bought a couple years ago. The interest rates were a little higher. They've dropped a little bit. They refinanced, saved hundreds of dollars a month, and you are still happy with where you are. You still have a house that you enjoy, but now you have a couple $100 extra a month that you can use for whatever you want. I would never expect to be able to refinance and try and to lower it. So don't try to overbuy thinking that you're going to be able to, because none of us have that crystal ball. We don't know if it's coming down. We don't know if it's going up. You've obviously got different, this is going to be kind of in the weeds of things, but when you're talking to the lenders, you're going to have different options. So you're going to have fixed and adjustable rate mortgages. You're going to hear a lot of ARMs. Fixed means for that 30 years or 15 years, depending on however long you do it, that rate is never going to change. Versus a lot of the ARMs or the adjustable rates are kind of popular right now, only because usually they can start low and then they will adjust. And again, when we tell you like plan for things, if you're going to go with the adjustable rate route now because it's a little lower, make sure you just have it planned for a roller coaster of a rate, because your payment is going to change every 6 months because they adjust that rate. It's again, those are going to be lender questions and conversations to see whatever works best for you and your situation at the time.
Perfect. Molly, we've got another question that kind of ties into the old homes. So John is wondering regarding old homes, what are some key questions to ask when looking at that home, like before the inspection?
Actually looking at the home. So there is a document that every homeowner is required to sign if they lived in the house. It's called the seller's disclosure. And they actually updated the seller's disclosure recently, and it's actually very helpful for buyers because they now, the seller now has to list the age of the roof, the age of the furnace, the age of the AC unit, and the age of the water heater if they know the age of it. So those are all important factors because obviously a new roof is going to be very costly. Same with the new HVAC, that's going to be very costly. The sewer line is something unknown, unfortunately. That's when, we don't know the age of a sewer line. We see problems with older homes and sewer lines because it's actually a cast iron sewer line and not PVC piping. That's what they do now. They will actually concave in, and unfortunately you don't know if it's working well until you actually get it cameraed, unfortunately. So once you're under contract and you go through that inspection phase, that's when you would do the sewer line scope. But Perfect. Those are just kind of the key things that I would ask, your agent, if they know the age of those items, or if the seller does, the agent can reach out to the selling agent and ask those questions.
Awesome. Molly, if people want to talk to you, if they're looking for that first house, I'm going to kind of give you guys both the stage to kind of give your, the companies a shout out and let them know where to reach you. Actually, we have one more question. Seller disclosure requirement details, is that nationwide or just Indiana?
I would say it's probably nationwide. I mean, we're both only licensed. I'm only licensed in Indiana. Christian, are you licensed anywhere else?
I am not, but I do. So there's a lot of like rules and regulations that are going to be like nationwide, and then when you get down to the state level, they change a little bit. Like she just mentioned, our seller's disclosures just got changed, which is really, really nice because it's some added extra information. But I know that because previous to that, we only had like a little 2-page inspection, and outside of looking at like the further notes where they might have written something and looking at the age of the roof, they truly weren't very helpful to like the buyer. The agents had a better eye at looking at it to see if they noticed anything. But if we just did it, it's like 100 check boxes and your eyes are just going to glaze over. Versus the new one, it's still that same thing, but it's 4 pages long and they've added extra information. But yeah, so it's just a lot nicer. But there's going to be rules and regulation that change state by state. But there's like an kind of like an umbrella nationwide kind of a scenario. I think one of the biggest ones, and as a first-time home buyer, and I don't think we've touched on this one yet, nationwide now, you have to see houses and work with an agent. You're going to have to sign a buyer's agreement to see them with an agent. And those are also going to range all over the place from being specific to that house. You're going to have some agents that will say like, oh, I'll work with you for a week or 6 months, 1 year, whatever it is. And so those are going to be like a new requirement. And even those change state by state on what you can do and what those all entail.
Perfect. So Christian, if people have any more questions, what's the best way to reach you if they want to chat with you?
Call or text is almost always best. Just like most of you, my phone's probably never too far away from me. You can reach me at 317-502-9259. That'll come right to me. And again, I'm on the south side of Indy, so I work in, granted, we all work everywhere, kind of at our line of work. But I grew up on the south side, and then I went to Ball State for 4 years and then came back to the south side. But I've got family more south than me on the east side, lived up on the north side. So very familiar with kind of everywhere. Being in the industry from before I graduated to right after I graduated, and being on the younger side, I've worked with a ton of first-time home buyers. Kind of came with the age a little bit, not having a bunch of just older friends that needed to already had owned homes to sell homes and stuff like that. So really very familiar with kind of the ins and outs and the questions that you might have with the in general process of the whole thing.
Awesome. Molly, what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they have more questions for you?
Just like Christian said, I'm always on my phone because I'm, the millennial. My cell phone is 317-362-8635. And then my email is just molly.lawless@talktotucker.com. I work with FC Tucker, which is one of the #1 brokerages in the Indianapolis area. I grew up in Marion County, like 71st and Dean. I don't know if anyone knows where that is, but lived in Broad Ripple for 7 years. And then I had to move to the suburbs because I have 2 young girls, and schools are important for us. So I do a lot of business on the north side. But like Christian said, I also work with a lot of first-time home buyers too, just because of, my age. But I also work with a lot of people moving into their second home that are moving up now in life as well. So, but yeah, real estate is, my passion, and it's something that I truly love doing, working with clients. It's, there is no dumb question while you're purchasing a home. So.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you both so much for joining us today. I want to thank everybody that commented today for having questions, everybody that tuned in, just kind of listening to the chat today. I appreciate you all for tuning in, all for being here. Christian, Molly, thank you very much for joining us today. I think we've learned a lot of great information from you both today. I want to thank the Career Center at Ball State for helping put this together, as well as the Young Alumni Council for working together and getting this put together. I think we've learned a lot today and had a great discussion. So thank you very much for today, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks so much for having me, Nathan.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.